Everyone, welcome. And in this lesson, we're going to be performing this really beautiful haircut specifically for long hair. It used to be called Rhapsody, and I suppose it still is. However, among people, it's simply called the ladder cut. Now let's examine the diagram to understand how we'll perform it. For this, we'll make a central vertical parting, dividing the head into two halves. At the center of the forehead, we isolate a thin strand of hair, pulling it straight out at a 0-degree angle, which means we allow it to hang freely and then cut it to the desired length. And this will be our guide section for all the hair. So we'll pull all the hair towards this guide section at a 45-degree angle. This means we'll create diagonal partings and strand by strand, pull them towards the face and cut them at an angle as well. The length of our cut will be directly dependent on the current length of the hair at the nape of the neck. I will show you exactly how to do this a little later during the practical demonstration. Once all the hair has been pulled forward towards the face, it will be necessary for us to create some additional graduation in the frontal parietal area. To achieve this, we will then change the elevation angle to 90 degrees and precisely cut the upper section of the hair in this specific manner. So this is the initial hair length we have. I'll be doing the cut on dry hair. They should be clean, loose, and free of any styling products. And a little later, I'll explain the benefits of dry cutting and who it's best for. But now I'm starting work. Friends, this is a very, very simple haircut. Even a complete beginner can handle it. So in the very center of the forehead, I'll take a thin section of hair, comb it straight down, and then cut it to the desired length. This must be agreed upon with the client beforehand. I cut the length significantly below my chin so that it would be convenient for me to create a layered cut, taking into consideration the hair length at the back of my head. My hair is quite long, so I really have to consider all these factors. What should you do if a client has long hair but asks for shorter face framing layers around her face and at the same time wishes to maintain the full length of her hair at the back? In that specific case, please proceed to do everything exactly as demonstrated in this video, ensuring you maintain the very same hair length. Then only later, towards the very end of the entire session, you will carefully section off the fringe area and then precisely shape its length and form entirely based on the client's specific wishes. And subsequently, using a sliding cut technique, you will seamlessly connect the fringe with the already existing layers. I'll also film separate lessons on fringe types because it's an important subject, but for now, let's continue. We select the diagonal angle so that we can still connect two hair lengths from face to nape. So now we need to divide all the hair into two sections, left and right. And we're going to achieve this using a perfectly central vertical parting. So as we learned from our beginner's course, we all remember, don't we, how to correctly and precisely section the hair for partings. To do this effectively, we first comb all of the hair towards the intended parting line, which in this specific instance means combing it straight back. And only after completing that step, our comb will then effortlessly glide through and separate the entire mass of hair. This ensures that the comb won't get caught or tangled in the hair anymore. To create symmetrical partings around the face, you must learn to work with a mirror, because the mirror in a hair salon is first and foremost a professional tool specifically for the stylist, not for the client. So everyone, I've divided the hair into two halves, pinned one section, and I'm going to start cutting. So I comb all the hair parallel to the future parting, and starting from the previously marked strand in the forehead area, I draw a diagonal line to the very center of the nape. The thickness of the section strand should be approximately 1 centimeter. Find your previously marked section in the forehead area, pulling it back at a 45-degree angle. Take a strand from the nape and pull it in such a way that its length is preserved when cut. I pulled it and I got an approximate 45-degree angle. Yours might be different. It will differ if the hair at the back of the head is even longer and the hair around the face is cut even shorter than I marked it. In that case, your cutting angle will be almost entirely vertical. Alternatively, you could adjust the elevation, meaning you pull the hair forward at more than 45 degrees towards the face. But please don't worry, most likely you will achieve the exact same result as I have. So stand in front of the client's face and gently brush the hair for the cut. The hair at the back of the head is slightly trimmed. That's how it should be because we are now creating the shape of the haircut. All right, we've cut the first guide section on the left, and now we immediately move to the right side. Now we must perform everything exactly the same, symmetrically, with the same length and the same elevation angle. Similarly, from the center of the forehead, I'll create a diagonal parting and then clip up the top hair. The guide section for the front of the face is already established. Now I want to create a guide section in the area just above the ear. I'll take the newly cut section from above the ear, pull it towards the center of the face, and then cut it to the exact same level. All right, now it's going to be much easier. I'm confident I've made it all symmetrical. Here I have 3 guide sections by the face, above the ear, and at the nape. Now I need to connect all these 3 points, which is exactly what I'm doing. As you can see, this haircut is very simple to perform. You just need to remember to always control your body's position. We must be positioned directly in front of the face, controlling our hands so they don't wander left or right, and not taking overly thick sections. We need to ensure the previous cut of the guide section is clearly visible. So, the optimal thickness of the new strand should not be thicker than 1 centimeter. This means the newly separated strand should be translucent against the control strand. As you can see, the hair at the nape is trimmed just a little here, but later on this will be completely unnoticeable. The overall length of the hair will still be preserved. As absurd as it may sound, considering it's all going to be trimmed. So we've established 2 reference lengths on both sides. And now I'm simply going to trim one side completely first, then the other. I won't be going back and forth step by step. Again, parallel to the last part, I section a new one, standing in front of the client. I comb a section from the center at a 45-degree angle, cutting it based on the previous cut. Then I comb up a new section, cut it, and continue this way until I reach the very center of the nape. I also want to note that when we trim the right and left sides, the direction of our fingers changes when pulling and gripping the strand. Notice that now when pulling, my fingers are pointing upwards. When I cut the opposite side, they will be pointing downwards. So you don't necessarily need to try and grasp the hair section with your fingers in precisely the same way that you did on the opposite side. When I was just starting out on my hairdressing journey, I always tried to do precisely that, and I simply couldn't understand why it wasn't working out for me. The most important thing here is to symmetrically maintain the pulling angle at 45 degrees and avoid swinging your hand left and right. So, why exactly do I perform haircuts on dry hair? This technique is most frequently employed for those with naturally wavy or very curly hair. This approach enables the stylist to precisely correct each individual curl's pattern and to meticulously craft the ideal shape for the haircut. But what exactly happens if you cut curly hair while it's still wet? Well, first of all, curly hair is naturally quite hygroscopic. They absorb a significant amount of moisture and are able to stretch out quite considerably. Secondly, this stretching ability is also accompanied by the curl straightening to a certain degree. Wet curly hair stretches when pulled, and when wet, these curly hairs, if stretched, can be very, very long. The stylist cuts off what seems like just a small amount, but after the hair dries, not only does it contract, but the curl also springs up. And of course, as a direct result, the overall hair length is significantly reduced. What's more, when we cut curly hair while it's still wet, there's a risk of cutting the curl at an incorrect point. And as a result, this little spiral or curl will stick out when dry. But what does our situation have to do with this? Your hair is straight, you'll say. Yes, it's also quite appropriate to do certain types of haircuts on straight hair. It's not so much about appropriateness as it is about convenience. The convenience lies in the fact that after the haircut, you don't need to dry your hair and you can immediately proceed to the finishing touches. Another convenience is that the master sees the natural way it drapes hair. The natural flow of the strands, how they fall naturally. And naturally, when cutting dry hair, it's all very easy to manage. Dry cutting works well on porous, brittle hair, especially long blonde, when you need to see the lightened ends. And this method is what I recommend. Alright friends, we have now successfully completed the right side of our haircut. Just look at this beautiful lengthening effect we've managed to achieve here. We'll be meeting again very soon in the second part of our lesson. For now, please take a well-deserved break and relax a little. And if any questions or concerns have come up, you have all my contact details. Feel free to reach out and message me directly on Telegram. All right, friends. Hello, everyone again. We've moved on to the second part of our lesson and continue performing our haircut called Rhapsody or Ladder. Let me remind you that this is a graduated haircut for long hair. And now we are cutting the second half of the head. Pay attention to how I'm now holding my fingers on this side.
I pick up a section of hair, guiding it from the top downwards, and then I proceed to cut it with my scissors, working from the bottom upwards.
Pay close attention to how I'm carefully combing through these hair sections. I'm combing a strand of hair towards the part that has already been trimmed, and to ensure I have enough space to properly grasp it, I simply push aside the upper portion of the cut strand, but I continue to maintain the exact same elevation angle. And in this manner, I am now completely confident that I will achieve a perfectly symmetrical haircut. And now I'm going to tell you who this particular hairstyle is for. This option is ideal for those with Slavic hair, thin, not thick, but who want to wear layered styles and lack of volume. This technique precisely involves a blunt cut at the ends. Also, the hair will beautifully frame the face in layers, and this very length of the layers can be varied later on. In the third part of the lesson, I'll show you exactly how to do this. We'll be doing graduation in the front and crown area there. So we'll change the angle there to make the layers around the face much lighter. This particular haircut has become especially popular over the last 2 years among girls, young women, and adult women. This cutting technique can also be successfully performed on medium-length hair. However, it's crucial to realize that the hair sections at the nape won't be as long anymore. Consequently, when you pull the hair forward onto the face, the strands from the nape area simply won't extend to the desired cutting point. Therefore, a Rhapsody haircut, when executed on medium-length hair, will, without a doubt, look distinctly different from the style created on long hair. But in both cases, the results turn out quite decent. This is because we, pulling the hair forward, use a 45-degree graduation. This graduation allows us to build up mass while also creating volume. These properties are especially needed for both fine and thick hair. Because if we were to pull the hair upwards, like in a classic layered cut, we would make the fine hair even thinner. Therefore, this cutting technique is especially suitable for thin or thick hair, as well as any straight hair of medium to thick density, but it won't suit wavy, voluminous, curly hair, as volume would accumulate at the bottom. So friends, we've figured out who this haircut style, or rather this technique, is suitable for. You simply must remember this. If a client possesses straight, fine, and sparse hair, then it is preferable to opt for straight or graduated haircuts. Additionally, you can individually incorporate layers into the upper occipital region. However, for thick, voluminous hair, you can confidently utilize both layers and graduation. Friends, I discussed layers and graduation in my very first course, so if you're not familiar with what that is, I highly recommend you take it. And hello again, everyone. We have now arrived at the third part of our lesson about the Rhapsody. And in this particular section, we will be working with the frontal parietal zone. And here we will also be including the upper occipital block. That means we will be cutting and trimming the entire crown area. This is how we separate the upper part of the head, guided by the temples. Then we create a horseshoe section all around the head. The lower hair can be clipped away with clips so it doesn't get in the way. As for the head on the upper part of the head, I carefully comb it all forward onto the face, and this is a precise angle at which we will be cutting these strands of hair. That means we'll be pulling them out, keeping them parallel to the floor. The client's head at this point should be in a perfectly level position. In the same way, we divide this section into two halves, and from the central vertical parting, I separate the first strand of hair on the left side, pulling it out parallel to the floor, and then I trim off the upper corner. Notice that I'm not making a straight cut, but a textured one. Since I raised the elevation angle and began a textured cut, I understand that thinning the hair won't be necessary. My model's hair is fine and not thick. If it were thick, I would refine it at the end of the haircut with point cutting, but in this case, it won't be needed. So on one side, I've literally trimmed just 3 sections of hair. If the hair had been really thick, I would have been able to get a maximum of around 5 sections. I'm moving to the other side now, and I'll be doing exactly the same thing there. But what if, after this particular haircut, your client requests that you make the face framing layers shorter? And the easiest way to achieve this is to section off the fringe area using a triangular shape. The apex of this triangle can begin either from the highest point of the head or by moving 2 centimeters back from it, closer to the face. In this specific situation, it will be most appropriate to employ a black cotton, primarily because it will very harmoniously blend into this particular layered haircut, and that's why we'll be focusing on it. Following that, the desired hair length is precisely established right in the center, and the exact same technique is then executed with the identical tension and elevation that I am currently demonstrating for you. The crucial point here is that we'll be pulling the side sections of hair towards the center in the direction of the central vertical parting line so that we achieve a lengthening effect towards the outer edges of the fringe, and subsequently with the slicing technique, we'll seamlessly incorporate the fringe into this existing layered cut. Friends, I want to remind you, if in this lesson you are not familiar with terms such as pointing, slicing, over direction, graduation, layers, and so on, I highly recommend you purchase my 7-lesson course for beginners. That's exactly where I explain all of this in detail. So we have now finished cutting the front parietal zone. This is how it all looks once it's completely dry. Now, if you prefer, you can shape the neckline at the back of the head. My client and I are both quite satisfied with the result, so I only trimmed a very small corner. However, if you require a much straighter outline, then simply make it straight. Ask the client to tilt their head forward and align. So we finished the cut, and now I need to straighten the hair panel and just dry the hair following the cut shape. I'm using a round brush here that measures 44 millimeters in diameter. Of course, I could have opted for a slightly larger one, but I really wanted to more distinctly curl the ends inward, simply to highlight the layered cut, so that you could truly see this beautiful shape in all its glory. And with that, I am completely finished. This is the wonderful final result that I've achieved. As you can clearly see, absolutely no further texturizing or thinning is needed. Choppy ends are no longer in style. Quality hair is in fashion, healthy, shiny. So friends, your homework will be to perform this exact same haircut. Turn on this lesson and just follow me step by step. If you have any questions, be sure to write to me on Telegram and we will go through them together. Well, my friends, I'm so happy that we were all together, and until we meet again,